Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the Learning Linux with PS program by Derive Hackers. Today, we will continue with our outline. We'll look at a few things and so on our outline, today we are going to be talking mainly on file permissions and management. And as always, we are going to be working a lot on our terminal. So let's get started. So before we start with file permissions and management, there are like two commands we're supposed to talk about yesterday that we didn't mention. The first thing is how to copy a file, how to move a file, then how to rename a file. So we are going to be doing that quickly. So we'll do ls and change directory to the DAH. Now we know we have the files. We have file dah.txt and we have file name.txt. We have first dir. And if we list the contents of this directory, it is empty for now. So we'll copy the dah.txt file to that directory. So to copy a file, what we need to do is use the cp command. So the command to copy is cp, the file name, which is the source, then where we want to copy it to. So we want to copy the file dah.txt to this directory named first dir. So doing this, if we run ls on the directory again, you can see that now we have the file here. So the other case is when we want to move a file. So now from here, we can see we have the file name.txt. Instead of copying the file, we want to move the file to the first dir. So to move a file, use the command mv, which is move, the file you want to move, the file name, then the location you want to move it to. So the syntax is similar to the copy command. So it is mv, which is the command, the source, which is the file name, and the destination, which is the directory you're moving it to in this case. So doing that, if you run ls again, that's that the file is no longer here. But if you run ls on the directory, you can see that the file is now in this directory. Then the last thing is how to rename a file. So to rename a file, let's change directory to this directory. So to rename a file, we are going to be using the same command, the mv command. So instead of moving it to another directory, what you're going to do is mv, the file name, the file we want to rename, and the new name we want to give it. So to rename a file, it is mv, the command is mv, the file name, which is the old name, and the new name we want to give it. So if we do this and we do ls again, you can see that the file.txt has been renamed to new file.txt. So that's that about the concluding part of yesterday. So today we'll be talking majorly on file permissions. So the command we have been using before, the ls command. So now we'll do a long listing. Let's use ls. Now, if you notice something, we have, so we are going to, what we are going to be working on majorly today is these parts. So we are going to be looking at the file permissions. So what the things we have here, we have something, we have the dash, rw dash r dash dash rr. So what we are going to be looking at is what these symbols mean. So to make it easy, let me open a text editor. I can try to do this. Okay. So I'll open an editor. So we have R, we have W, and we have X. What these modes mean is that the R stands for read permission. As I said, the R stands for read, the W stands for write permission, and X stands for execute. So this permission means if we have this permission, that means this particular user has read permission, has write permission, as there's no execute permission. So R just stands for read, which is read permission, W is write, and X is execute. So we can also represent these permissions with numbers. So read is represented with 4, W is 2, and execute is 1. So if we sum up, if we do the calculation, the total should be 7. So if you are given a question that says a file has the permission of a file is 777 or something, that means you know the file has read, write, execute permissions. So again, R stands for read permission, W stands for write permission, and X stands for execute permission. And what this means is that this file, the user of the owner of the file is rootfish, and the group of the file is rootfish. So when you create a file, it has the name of the owner and the group it belongs to. So the owner of this file is the user rootfish, and the group is user rootfish. So the first three parts of this permission, try to make this bigger. So let me see. No, exit. Yeah. So this first three bits represents the read, write, execute. So this user rootfish has read permission on this file, has write permission, but no execute permission. Then the group has read permission, no write permission, and no execute permission. Then the third part stands for others. Like the third part means everyone. That means everyone has read permission on this file. Everyone does not have write permission, and there's no execute permission for everyone. So only the user has read, write permission, and the group and everyone has just read permission. And if you look closely, there's a dash before the first area. So when we started the class on day one, we said that everything in Linux is a file. So what this first dash mean is that this particular file here is actually a file. If that sounds confusing, I'll try to go back a directory before then do this again. If you notice now, we have the file doh.txt, which is a regular file. And if you check here, you have a dash. The dash means that the dash indicates that it's a regular file. And if you look at the directory, which is first.dir, then instead of having a dash at the front, we have D, which stands for directory. So that's the way you can differentiate between regular files, directories, and there are some other file types too. So but we'll be focusing on just regular files and directories. So the dash shows that the file is just a regular file, and D shows that the directory, which is also a file, is just a directory. So D stands for directory, and the dash shows it's just a regular file. So now we know that a file can have read, write, execute permissions. So let's bring that up again. So we know if I can have read, write, execute permissions. So what we're going to be looking at is how we can change file permissions. So to change file permission, we're going to be using the chmod command, which is you can change the mode of the file. So the chmod command, you can quickly use the man command to look up what it does. So the chmod change file mode bits. So using this command, we can change file mode bits, we can change permission on a particular file, and you can go through the manual to better understand what the command is doing. So we exit out. So presently, the user has read write permission, no execute permission. The group has read permission, no write, no execute. So we are going to be changing the permission so that the user has read write execute permission, and the group we have read write permission, and everyone will just have read permission. So as I said before, read is 4, write is 2, and execute is 1. And if we sum them up, we'll get a total of 7. So to use the command is chmod. Now we'll use the decimal form first, then we'll use the bit itself. So we can use chmod. Then we want to make the user have read, write, execute permission. So to do that, read is 4, write is 2, execute is 1. So summing them up, That gives us 7. Then we want to make the group have read write permission, and that will be just be read plus write, which is 4 plus 2, and that will be 6. And we want everyone else to have just read permission, and that is 4. So if we do ch mode 764, which stands for the user should have read write execute, the group should have read write, and everyone should have just read, and we'll give it the file name. Let's change the mode of new file. Now if we do ls again, we can see that now we have read write execute for the user, we have read write for the group, and just read for everyone else. So that's one way we can change the permission of the file. And another way to change permission of the file is to use chmod, but instead of using decimal, we can just pass the file. So let's say we want to make the user of the owner of the file have just read write. We want to change back to read write. So we can do chmod, then the part we want to change is for the user, which is represented by u, and we can say the user equals to read write and give it the file name. Now if we do this again, now you can see that the permission has been changed to just read write. So we can do the same thing and change the, so let's change the permission for everyone to read write execute. So we'll do chmod, let's say everyone is just O, which stands for others. So the U is the user, G stands for group, then O others. Then we can give others permission of read write execute and give it the file name. Now we do a listing again. Let me try to clear this. You can see that now the user has read write, the group has read write, and everyone else has read write execute permission. So let's try to reset that back to normal 640. So 640 means the user has read write, the group has read, and everyone else has no permission at all. I'll go over that again. Okay. So I said the chmod allows us to change the permission of a file. We have looked at what permission of a file means. So using this as an example again. So if we use this dh.txt as an example, from this listing, we know this first part shows the owner of the file. So the owner of the file is rootfish, and the second one is the group of the file. So the owner of this file is rootfish, and the group owner of the file is rootfish also. So converting that to permission, we say that we have 3 permission modes. We have the read, write, execute. So if the user has read permission, that means you can actually read the file, like you can run cats on the file. So we covered how to read a file yesterday. So if you have the read permission, that means you can read the file. If you have the write permission, that means you can write the file. That means you can edit the file. And if you have execute permission, that means you can run the file if it's an executable. And we say they can be represented in decimal form in numbers. The read is 4, write is 2, and execute is 1. So you can, if you add them up, they will give a total of 7. And we say to change permission of a file, we can use the chmod command, which is to change mode. And if you want to know more about it, you can use man chmod and read what the command does. So to change the permission of a file, we can use chmod, then what the permission we want to give it. So we said read is 4, write is 2, then execute is 1. So let's say we want to change the permission of this dh.txt file such that the owner of the file we have read, write, execute, the group of the file we have read, write, and everyone else we have no permission at all. So to do that, We can say chmod. We look at the first method by using decimal form. So we know to make it read, write, execute, that's 4 plus 2 plus 1. As I was saying, to change the permission of a file, we can use the chmod command. And so we want to change the permission of the dh.txt file such that the owner of the file we have read, write, execute permission, the group we have read, write permission, and everyone else we have no permission at all. So to do that in decimal form, we can do chmod. Read, write, execute is 4 plus 2 plus 1, which adds up to 7. Then read, write is 4 plus 2, which is 6. And we want everyone to have no permission at all. So that will be 0. And give it the file name. So we want to give it DOH. Yeah. So now if we do ls again, we can see that the owner of the file has read, write, execute. The group has read, write, and everyone else has no permission at all. I don't know if that explains it. So now let's see the effect this permission has on the file itself. So let's create a new file with the touch command. Say let's touch file 2.txt and put some content into it. So let's say echo welcome to day 3 into file 2. Now we cut file 2. We have this content. So if we do now, if we run cat file 2, we can see the content of the file. So let's see how this permission affects the file itself. So if we do ls on this file, we can see the user has read, write permission, the group has read permission, and everyone else has read permission. So we are going to change the permission of the file such that the owner of the file will just have read permission and no write permission. So presently, if we run nano and we try to edit the file, we can actually edit the file, save it, and if we cast the file again, you can see that our edited text is shown here. So let's remove the write permission from the user. To do that, we can use a shortcut chmod. Then we want to remove permission from the user. So the user, then we want to remove the write permission. We can do -w to remove the write permission, then the file. Now we do ls again. You can see the file has just read permission for the owner, read permission for group, and read permission for everyone. So like we did, like we'll try to edit the file again and see if we can actually save it. Now we try to edit the file again. You can see something here. It says the file 2.txt is unwritable. That means if you don't have the write permission, you can't write to that file, if that makes sense. So to be able to edit a file, you need to have the write permission to do that. So we'll change that back. Earlier we used u minus w, so now we'll do u plus w to add the write permission to the user and give it the file name. Now we can see we have the write permission added, and we can try to edit the file, and this time we can edit the file. And now we can edit the file without any issue. So now let's try to remove read permission. Let's see if that works. So similar to how we removed write permission, you can do chmod. Then we'll try to remove read permission and give it the file name. Now if we try to open the file again, we get a permission denied. And the reason is, if we check the listing again, we can see that the user, this user, which is the owner of the file, currently has no read permission on this file. We only have write permission. So since we don't have read permission on this file, we can't open the file. So if we try to run cat, we get a permission denied because we don't have read permissions. So to fix that, we just do the same thing we did, u plus r. then the file name, and now we should have our read permission back, and we can cast the file and it will open. So depending on the permission on the file, it determines if a particular user or group can open a file, can write to a file, or can execute a file. So if you have questions, you can drop them while we continue. So now we know how to create a file, we know how to check file permissions, we know we can tell if a file is readable, writable, or executable. So we'll look at some common files, and we can try to figure out the implication the permission have. So one popular file on Linux is the etc passwd file. Okay. So the shortcut to clear your screen, instead of typing the clear command out, you can just use Ctrl L and it will clear the screen. So now let's try to read the permission of the active password file. So let's do ls the etc passwd file. Now we can see that this file is owned by the root user. It belongs to the root group, and the root user has read write permission. People in the root group has just read permission, and everyone else has read permission. So we can try to open this file. I don't think this is pretty, so we'll try to cut. Then I don't know if I can pass it into this. Uh, uh, sorry, I don't have the command. Let's just work with this. I'll try to bring my screen down a little. So if we try to open this file, you see that we can actually read the file because we have read write permission. Because we have read permission on the group rather, sorry. So let's try to write to the file instead. From what we can see, we see that we don't actually have the permission. We should not have write permission on this file. So let's just try to write to it. So let's do echo, say write to pass file, and try to write to this file, and we'll get a permission denied. And that's because we don't have write permission on that particular file. So to write to a file, you must have write permission. To open a file, you must have the read permission. Then the question, who are the people in the root group, is not the same as the root user. Yeah, on Linux, when you have a user, the user is created and the user also belongs to its own group. I'll try to explain that. If we do command we looked at on the one is ID. So if you run ID, you can see that this particular user has UID 1000, which is rootfish, and there's also a group of rootfish. So the user belongs to its own group. That means the root user also belongs to its own group. The root user is a part of the root group. So to belong to the root group, there's this group, the pseudo group. So if you belong to the pseudo group, that means you can run commands as the root user. We also look at how to add a user to a group when we get to user management and user permissions. So now I think we should have a better understanding of how file permission work and their implication on the file. So to go over it again, I said for you to be able to open a file, to read a file, you must have the read permission. To write to a file, you must have the write permission, that is to edit a file. Then to run a file, you must have the execute permission. And we say the permission can be represented with decimal. We say read is 4, write is 2, and execute is 1. And you can use that with the chmod command to change file permissions. I got a notification just now that our meeting will end soon, so we'll try to finish up as soon as possible. I don't want to take our time today. So what another thing we'll be looking at, which is the last thing for today, is we'll be looking at file attributes. So to do that, there's this command we'll be using the command ls attr. It's similar to the ls command, but now it shows the attributes of the file. So we use ls attr, which is list attributes, then the file name. And the output we get, you can see we have this e mode and we have the file name. So what this represents is it means the file is editable. So you can use the man lsattr to read more about what it does. It lists file attributes, and you can read more about it to understand what each mode means. Oh, since we have the E mode here, that means we can actually edit the file. So let's say in a case whereby you have a file like a configuration file, for example, and you don't want the file to be overwritten by another user. So what you can do is to change the file attributes to make sure it is not overwritten by mistake. So you can make the file immutable. That means it won't change. So to do that, similar to the lsattr, there's another command, chattr, which stands for change attributes. You can also use the man command. So the command change file attributes. So we can change the file attributes and say we want to add the plus I, which means the file should be immutable, and give it the file name. Then I think I have to run that as the root with enough privileges. So let's try that again. Now we will run lsattr again. We can see that the file has the I mode, which means the file should be immutable. So now we'll try to edit the file and see if we are able to edit it. So if we try to edit the file now, since the file attribute says it is immutable, we get this error that says the file.txt is unwritable. So that's another way you can you can set permission on the file. So if you have, the best case scenario is when you have a file you don't want to be overwritten by mistake. So you can change the attribute such that it will be immutable and nobody will be able to write to it. So to make it mutable back, you can just do the same thing, chattr, which is change attributes, and you remove the immutable mode. So doing that, you can see the file should now be, the immutable flag is gone now. So we have the E flag, which means the flag should be editable. We should be able to edit the file. So that's that about file permissions. And I think we can call it a day here. So if you have questions, kindly drop them before we exceed our limits, and we'll call it a day. Okay, by execution, what are the operations under it? Okay, when we say executable, yes, I don't know how much time we have left. Okay, when we say a file is executable, let's write a script, for example. Let's say we have, let's edit this file, the file 2. We do this, and let's just write a simple batch script, and it's just going to echo, let's just show the date. Yeah, I think we should be good. Now if we check this file, we have the read write permission, but there's no execute permission. So when we say a file is executable, that means you can actually execute the permission using the dot, which stands for the comments directory, then the / to execute the file. So if we try to do this, we'll see that we get this error that says permission denied, and that's because we don't have the execute permission on the file. So to execute the file, we must have the permission. So let's do chmod user plus x on the file. And now if we try to do it again, you can see that it runs. So execution just means it's just like a program. You'll be able to run the file as a program. I don't know if that makes sense. So another question, what if you want to change permission for group and everyone? Is it going to be G and E? No, for group it is G, then for everyone, I said it earlier, it is O. To set permission for everyone, it is O, not E. So as I said earlier, the user is you, group is G, then everyone else is O, or you call it others. That's a better way to put it. So U is user, G is the group, and everyone else or others is O, to change the permission for everyone else. Okay, then I'm getting a question. Difference between chmod and chmod X. So let's see what the command does. We'll see if it has a help function and command not found. I'm not sure if that's a valid command, so let me just try to look it up. And I can't find the command, so I don't think the command exists in Linux. So the question, difference between chmod and chmod X, I can't find the command in Linux presently, and I tried to look it up. I can't find the command. So if you can give me explanation about that, so we'll look it up. So if you have any other questions, please drop them so we can go over them before we finally call it a day. Okay, so I will assume there are no more questions and we can call it a day. So I hope everything was clear enough. Just to go over it again, what we looked at is file permissions. So we talked about the file permission, we talked about the read, write, execute. We said to be able to open a file, you must have the read permission on the file. To So let's take this file for example. So to be able to read a file, you must have the read permission. To be able to edit a file, you must have the write permission. And to run a file as a program, you must have the execute permission. I will say the first set here represents the permission for the user, which is the owner. The next set represents permissions for the group, and the last set represents permission for everyone or others. Then we talked about how to change file modes, file permission. So let's say, for example, we want to change the permission of the file 2.txt such that the owner of the file has read write permission, the group has just read permission, and everyone else has no permission at all. We say you can either use the decimal form by using chmod, then read write permission is just 4 plus 2, which will be 6. Read is 4, and we want to remove permission from everyone else, so they have no permission at all. So that will be 0, and you can give it the file name. And now if we do this again, we can see that the file has read write permission for the owner, just read permission for the group, then everyone else has no permission at all. Then we can also change the file permission using the bit itself. So we say the user is represented with U, the group is represented with G, and everyone else is represented with O. So we can say chmod U, you can say equals to read write execute and give it the file name. And if we do this again, you can see that the file permission has been changed to read write execute. And you can do the same thing for the group and everyone else. Then we also looked at file attributes. So we say you can show the file attributes using the ls-attr command, which is list attributes. You can either run it directly or give it a file name. So, and it shows if the file is immutable or if you can edit the file. So if you want to make the file immutable, you can use chattr, which is change attributes, then give it the I flag. And you must have enough privilege to do that. Sorry. So if we list the attributes again, you can see that the file is now immutable, and if we try to edit the file, you should get a permission denied. The file is unwritable. That means if you have a particular file you don't want to be don't want the file to be overwritten by mistake, you can make the file immutable so you don't override it by mistake. So it's just a sort of protection on the file itself. And that's what we looked at today's session, and I hope it's clear enough to everyone. So on that note, I would like to say thank you for joining this session, and we'll continue the discussion on the group chats, and also tomorrow's session at the same time. Thank you for joining and bye.